G'day and welcome to Ubuntu installation instructions. Apologies for this webcam. My other webcam doesn't work as unfortunately on Linux, so you'll have to put up with this one. But anyway, so we're going to go through some quick tips on how to get the system set up if you're running Ubuntu 22.04. Now, today's goal is to get the Gazebo simulator working inside of our VS Code, and so that's what we'll aim to do. Now, we're going to continue to use Docker. Even though on Ubuntu 22.04 you can run ROS Humble natively, I encourage you to use Docker. It will make things easier at least in the short term, because it means that when you try to use the system, you'll be using the exact system that I've got on my computer, whether I'm on Windows or Linux. And so that'll make troubleshooting a lot easier, and there won't be a lot of weird bugs. If you want to get sort of a more deeper dive of the rationale for why I think Docker is a great tool, I've got another video in this course that talks about that. All right. But anyway, so the instructions are basically we have to go to the two instructions that are annoyingly separate. We have to follow the instructions at that first link, which is just the install instructions, just a whole bunch of like code that adds the keys to your repo and then downloads the Docker version from Docker's servers. But then the second very important step that you need to do is you need to create a user, or give your user Docker permissions. And this will allow your user to run Docker without needing sudo or root permissions. This is very important. If you don't do this, then a lot of the dev container stuff that we need to do later on, it becomes much, much harder. And it only takes a few steps. So, I'm going to assume that if you are running Ubuntu, then you're already kind of familiar with following online instructions for how to install stuff. So I'm not going to like take you through those steps, but I'm going to assume that you can follow these two links but critically don't forget to make it so that you can use you don't need sudo. And finally, I fell into this trap with another person recently. Don't install Docker Desktop for Linux. It does a whole bunch of stuff in the background that doesn't seem to work nicely with VS Code dev containers. So just install normal Docker Engine instead. Okay, and so you'll know it works if this command works for you. So if you hit docker run hello world. Okay, great. So now just in a terminal, I need you to install code. You can use the snap store to install code, sudo snap install code dash dash classic. We're also going to need git to get the main workspace repo. So git clone and away you go. And then finally, the last command code dot is going to open VS Code. You can see here we go cd for robots workspace. So that means we'll move into the directory that contains the code we just downloaded with git, and then we're going to run code dot, and that should open up for you VS Code in the folder which which you're using. Okay, great. So you should see something that looks a little bit like this. Note there's this reopening container. That's really handy when you're coming back to it, but you may not have the thing installed yet. So go to extensions on the left, and then click dev containers, and make sure that it's installed. You can see I've already got it installed in my VS Code, but you'll want to install dev containers. That's the most important step. You can also hit Control Shift X if you don't want to click this little box thing here. Okay, so now that we've got the dev container extension installed, we need to open our folder in dev container. So if you hit Control Shift P, um, and then there's a few things that come up, and dev containers open folder in container is what you want to run. For me, it comes up first because I use it a lot, but for you, you might have to type a bunch for it to come up. But that's the command we want to use. We want to open this folder that we've downloaded from the internet in our dev container. You might get a pop-up that asks you for, which you can't see on the screen there, but it just says, yeah, which folder, and the folder is the one we just cloned with Git. And so a whole bunch of things happen for you. It will probably download some Docker stuff, and it might take a bit longer than it took here for me. But you'll notice when you're done, if you look in the bottom left, this dev container for robots in 4 weeks, if it says dev container in the bottom, this means that you're inside of your dev container. And I encourage you to check when you're thinking things aren't working, to just double check you're in the dev container. If you're not in the dev container, you're in your normal computer and things won't work as you expect. You won't have the programs that you might expect. You may not even have ROS. So it's very important that you check you're inside the dev container when you're getting started. Okay, great. So now what we can do is we can run task. So we're going to go tasks, run task, and we're going to run day 2. And this will start up the gazebo world. And it's just spawned over here, and I'll just share my screen. So this is what Gazebo looks like. Gazebo is a physics-based simulator for simulating robots. Just a few things I want to point out to you that you have in the top here. You have a whole bunch of things you can add. You can add stuff if you want. You can also select existing objects and you can move them. So we could say move this box up. We could even rotate it like that, and maybe we'll move it to be above this ball. Maybe we'll move this ball so it's kind of below it. Maybe we'll move the ball up. And then you can see that it's sort of frozen in time. That's because the simulation is paused. If we hit play, then we'll see everything will start rolling about. And this ball here might go and hit that object. Um, I might just push this up. There's a sort of weird interaction there, I think. Wow, that is super weird. But yeah, so basically this is the Gazebo simulator. Um, and you can play around with its physics engine. And this is what we use to simulate our robot. Um, there's a whole bunch of things. You can right click here and you can change you can make things a wireframe. Maybe make this a wireframe so we can see it better. Um, and you can look, and there's some plugins at the top here you can play with. You can also see the simulation speed. I recommend just playing around with Gazebo and get a feel for what it can do. And that's it. So now you've got set up, you've got a Gazebo simulation running on your Ubuntu 22 computer.